This is my initial impressions of the Spyderco Native 5 lightweight FRN handles, sprint run, and 15V steel. I've not opened this box yet. I just got it, and I'm going to do this unboxing and initial impressions with you guys. So again, this is a sprint run Native 5 in 15V steel. This is an FRN handles. Looks pretty good. Try to get a shot of the edge bevel there if I can. Wow, that's extremely sharp. So I recently tested the Native 5 G10 Sprint Run in 15V, and I've also done kind of an initial test of Native 5 FRN with Maximate. In those videos, I talk about this issue where these FRN versions do this clicky thing. I touch on this in my Native 5 G10 review, and I really talk about it in this FRN Maximate review. If you guys want more information about that, I would refer you to those videos. I'm just going to check this and see if it does that weird little clicky thing. The G10 does not do it. Some of the FRN ones do. I'm not detecting any of that clicking, which is good. So again, I refer you to my Maximate review of that for more information, but just know that this particular specimen of this Native 5 is not apparently doing that clicky issue that I've brought up in some of my other videos. So the Native 5 is a knife that's been reviewed very much. I would refer you to look at other reviews for information about the Native 5 as a platform. So I'm going to talk mostly in this initial impressions about what I think about this knife right now, this particular specimen, and what I think of 15V steel. So this specimen is very good. It's extremely sharp. Very sharp. This thing is one of the sharpest knives I've ever had from Spyderco. Like I said, the action's fine. It's actually very good for FRN versions that I've had, because like I said, it doesn't do that clicking thing like so many of them do, at least in my experience. This one's not doing it at all. It is a lockback. If you're okay with lockbacks, then you'll know what you're getting. So I know quite a few people are trying to get their hands on 15V steel and have been unable to do it because it's kind of limited in these sprint runs. Hopefully Spyderco continuing to do these knives in these sprint runs will make it so more and more people can get their hands on the steel if they're interested in trying it. My experience with 15V is somewhat limited. I've tested the Mannix and the Native and G10. I have reviews on these knives. I refer you to them for more information. Both of these knives came very sharp out of the box. This one may well be the sharpest. My experience with 15V is that it holds its front end sharpness very well, and it touches up quite well. I was unable to strop this knife back on a leather strop after doing my rope and cardboard edge retention test. I did have to use just a basic work sharp type ceramic plus a leather strop, and I was able to touch this knife up very well. After doing my rope and cardboard test, I was able to touch this knife up on really with just very few swipes on this basswood loaded with straw B stuff, 0.25 micron. This knife touched up very well off this. I've tested these knives quite a bit. I don't let them get really dull. I test them to the point where they get slightly duller than so they'll quit scraping my arm hair, and then I keep testing them a little further, and then I have tried to resharpen them or touch them up. Both of these knives sharpen very easily off regular diamond systems, and I was able to touch this one up with a Spyderco ceramic bench stone. and I was able to touch this up with Nanowatt Pro stone. However, I did notice when I touched this one up that the apex felt slightly, just a little flat. Not quite totally pointy, just a little flat. Definitely flatter than this edge is right now. Right now it's quite pointy. So just be aware that if you are trying to resharpen 15V, you probably are going to need diamonds, but you may have luck touching it up with diamond emulsion, compound loaded strops, and basic ceramics. But if you let your knives get too dull, you're probably gonna need diamonds for it. So overall, I've been very impressed with 15V. It holds its front end sharpness for a very long time in my testing. And one thing I like about it a lot is that when it dulls, the edge remains quite stable, meaning that it doesn't get super deformed. I haven't had it really flatten out, roll the edge, or get burrs. The edge is quite strong. I actually just noticed while I was playing with this thing that this has a slight burr from here. So this is the show side, the Spyder side. It has a slight burr from here up. No burr down here that I can feel. Nope. Nope. It's quite slight. It's very, very small. But it is there. So here's what the edge looks like on some catalog paper. Wow. This thing is extremely sharp. This is noticeably sharper than these other two 15V knives that I've had. Both of these knives I mentioned in my initial impressions are very sharp from Spyderco, and this FRN one is the sharpest. Again, that burr is very, very, very slight. It's just barely leaning off. If you imagine 12 o'clock, it's like leaning off at 12:01, just barely off center. Barely, that will probably come right off with the basic stropping, but stand by. I'm gonna get a sharpness check on this guy. I'm gonna try to get two readings. I'm gonna try to get a reading up here where I think that slight burr is. This knife still feels very, very, very sharp up there, so I don't know that it'll be too much of a difference, but I'll try to get a reading up there, and I'll try to get a reading down here deeper into the main belly of the knife. So that's at the tip, 109. Now for the deeper belly part, 118. Again, very, very similar results. So I don't think this burr is doing too much to make the knife read any duller anyway. So I find it interesting that today the factory edge of this FRN version showed 109 for sharpness at the tip. When I tested the factory edge sharpness on the G10 version, it also showed 109 for sharpness at the tip. So that's where we're at with this. My initial impressions of this knife are very, very, very good. I'm glad it doesn't have the clickiness I've experienced with other FRN models. I'm glad this edge is very, very, very sharp. A little tiny bit disappointed that there's this. Again, that burr is very, very, very slight. Just barely off center on that spot. But this knife is very, very, very sharp. It's shaving like crazy. It is, toothiness is exceptionally, exceptionally high. So I'm really happy with this knife. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a full test of this thing. I might, but I've done quite a bit of testing with these other 15Vs. I am kind of interested in doing some factory edge testing on this just because it's so sharp. So if you want one of these, I really, really hope you can get your hands on them. They're running about $158. If you've been trying to get your hands on 15V, I hope you're able to do so. I've been very impressed with it. Again, it holds up very, very, very well. Way better than Maximate on front end sharpness for sure. Keep in mind, I'm not testing 15V into deep dulling, but I have tested it and done some initial gentle resharpenings and some touch-ups. I have not had to do a major resharpening of 15V though. So take that for what it's worth. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching.